Well, what a week. Sunday was one of those special days here, and unfortunately, you never get enough time to enjoy it. But we did enjoy the day Sunday and got back to work yesterday as a staff. As a team, we start back to work today. Players had a much needed day off. It's been an incredible month, really, when you look at the schedule. But we're back at it today, and I think they're excited to get back at it. I know that whoever we play, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, if you look at it, Indiana beat us, and Oregon had us down 14. So those two teams were two of the teams that were picked in the top three at the beginning of the year. Oregon is maybe the hottest team right now in the league. They've won 7 straight, I believe. Is that true? Oh, yeah. And Indiana has done a great job down the stretch, even where Mike has said maybe I left too early. I heard the interview, but I believe they've won 5 out of their final 7 games too, right? So one's won 7, one's won 5 out of 7. We've won our share, so we know we'll have our work cut out, but it doesn't matter which one of the opponents is the opponent. It's the first day always worries me. I think there is an advantage for the team that plays the day before the first day. Then the advantage goes away because then fatigue and that sets in. But I've seen a lot of teams, and I don't think these would be considered upsets anymore. To me, top to bottom, this might be one of the best tournaments that I've been involved with. There's been a few teams at the top better in other years, but I bet you that people could pick 8 teams that could win the Big Ten tournament. Nobody would bat an eye, personally. So I'll open it up to questions.
Tom, congratulations on the award. If I did my research correctly, you're the oldest to win the Coach of the Year in the Big Ten.
Damn.
And also
Is that a compliment or an insult?
And also the longest gap between Big Ten Coach of the Year. With everything that happened in that gap, I mean, you went to a couple Final Fours in there. What does this one mean to you? Like knowing the history of the coaches in this league to get to that point.
Well, number one, not with humility, but you don't win these without your staff and your players. I mean, they win the award. They do the grunt of the work. I just manage it. And so, number one, I want to thank them all publicly because we preach to our players all the time. If the team has success, the individuals within the team will have success. And I'm a recipient of the success our team had. I thought there were, if you look at the true value of what is a Coach of the Year, I mean, yeah, we weren't picked this high. Wisconsin was another team, wasn't picked this high that had a hell of a year. And yet I think Northwestern, who's gone through so many injuries and the job he's done, if you look at the true meaning is that, and that's maybe what happened some of those years when we were pretty good. There were other guys that did a better job. I think what was neat about this for our team is everybody had to be on the same page for us to win and then consequently me to win an award like this. And Doug Wojcik won the Assistant Coach of the Year award, and I think very deserving of that. And, we were talked about not having anybody on the first, second, or third team at one point. People didn't think we'd have anybody, and some guys really came on at the end. But I'm pleased to do that. I don't know if it has the same meaning now that I find out I'm the oldest and it's the oldest in between. But at the same time, I think it serves to what I say all the time. It's you can adjust and change, but the basics of what you do in these jobs and what is needed to do to win championships hasn't changed in 100 years, much less 20.
Yeah, I think you alluded to this on the Big Ten interview, but some folks maybe had suggested that the game had, I think your words were left you behind or something like that.
Passed me by. Yeah.
Sure, and I'm curious, in the context of that and what you've done this season, is there a sense of maybe gratification that you were able to prove it, that you can still do it?
I don't look at it vindictively like that, where you have to prove it. You know, what happens when you've been around a long time and you've been in a conference, the same conference. I mean, when I started out in this conference, Bobby Knight and Gene Cady and Clem Haskins and Tom Davis and, you know, guys that have won big for a long time, 20 years or more. And then, you know, I'm in this conference and, you know, George Perlis here, Bo Schembechler's down there, you know, Woody Hayes had come from Ohio State, you know, and you saw what those guys all went through. And, you know, all of them were told that the game passed them by too a few times, you know. Is it 3 yards in a cloud of dust? You know, we got to change, you know. But the basics of it is still the basics. You got to be able to block and tackle in football. You got to be able to not turn the ball over. The same things happen in basketball, except maybe because of the changing landscape, like it's never changed with the NIL and the transfer portal. There's so many other things you got to consider. How do people get along? What, does the teams get jealous of each other? Does the team, if they have a bunch of new people, do they fit in together? There's so many other factors now. But I don't look at it that there I showed you, because I don't think I've done anything that much different. I've adjusted. I've spent a little more time with the players. I always spent a lot of time, but I made sure this summer, this spring, or this fall, we did things together. We went to baseball and football and basketball games. We went to the UP. We went to Spain. We just did as many things as we could do together to try to build the camaraderie. And I'd say that if Coach of the Year was given for the reason it should be given for what was done off the court, not on the court. And that's what I think people sometimes don't appreciate about here is spending time with players pays dividends. And you get to know them better. You get to understand them better. They get to know you better. They get to understand you better. When you're in a foxhole with somebody and you got to win a game or you got to fight a fight, it's good to know everything you can know about the guy next to you. And I think that's what we've done a better job of than maybe we've done in a long, long time. And we're forced into it in some ways, but it was a good thing. So, no, it's not, hey, look at me, I'm still alive. It's, hey, I got a good staff, I got good players, and I got guys that sacrificed, bought in, and did everything they could do for winning. And I think it was Nick Saban, one of those coaches, a couple of them said the same thing, is winning as important as it used to be. I think with this team, winning was important, and they showed it. They showed it not by winning, they showed it by the sacrifices they made for each other to win. And I think that was very impressive and a good life lesson for all of us.
Tom, you speak to the sacrifices. There was clearly a hunger this team had to win and to win a championship, and it's done that. And obviously, when you get to the NCAA tournament, that's an automatic hunger, right? It's just built in.
You hope.
You hope. Yeah, right. But with the Big Ten tournament, you know, there are varying degrees of hunger and desperation going into this thing. I'm wondering how you get that out of your team when they just accomplished something that took a lot of hunger, and then how much over the years you've seen hunger play a role in who is successful this weekend.
Boy, that is unfortunately too good of an honest question, because no coach is going to say, no, we're not ready to play this week. Do we fear that? Hell yes. Hell yes, because everybody's human. You know, everybody's patting everybody on the back, making them feel good, and then 3 days later or 4 days later, you got to go play somebody that one beat you, and the other one could have beat you, should have beat you maybe. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about to our team today and tonight in the meeting is more about winning ways are winning ways, you know, and every time you take the court, if you're really growing to be special as a person, every time you compete, you're going to try to compete to win. And that's easier said than done. I would agree with you on that. I think we got some good ammo, you know. I mean, both these teams that we'll play the first game has beaten us or could have beat us, and if you get to the second game, now you're getting into learning about what one and done is all about. And if you lose a game, whether at the first or second, you're going to learn a lesson that is hard to swallow. And what I'm going to tell them is, you don't need to learn the lesson. I've been there, done that. This is one time my experience can help you. It's not as much fun as you think. Having Friday night off, Saturday night off, is not that good. There's a million Saturdays between now and death. Enjoy them then. Let's see if we can do our job and play to the level that we need to play to. And that worries me too, that we got a little off the radar with ourselves. We kind of tried to be somebody we weren't there in a couple of the games, and I'm going to talk about that. We got to make sure that we understand that it's not just defend and rebound, it's defend and rebound and run. And 3 games in a row, we started shooting the ball better. Now, does that mean our defense is going to go down because we're shooting the ball better? I'm going to tell them that if you really want to really be special, now you put them both together. That's what's supposed to happen. And if that can happen, we'll advance. But hey, I've had good teams that have lost the first game to less teams than we're going to play. There's going to be some good games Thursday with some really good teams. And so it'll be an interesting Big Ten tournament. But I'm hoping not for a letdown, because if we do have one, if we get beat, we get beat. If we have a letdown, that means I question our leadership, question my coaching, and question the hunger to continue to keep winning anytime you play.
Tom, after the loss to Indiana, you called it one of the lowest points in your career. If someone had told you at that point you would win the next 7 games, would you believe them? And where does this run rank in your career? With I think 5 of those were ranked wins. You on the road and in some hostile environments.
Well, remember why I said it was the low point in mine. It wasn't because I lost to Indiana. It's because I didn't do a very good job, and I took ownership to that. I took offense to myself. Usually I take offense to you guys for hitting me with something I didn't. I took offense to myself. I did not do a good job on either end of the court, if you ask me. And so I vowed that that's not going to happen. So we got together as a staff and we talked about the things that we didn't do well enough. And our job is to put our players in the best possible position to be successful. I did not feel we did that. That's why it was a low point for me, not because Indiana's a good team. It wasn't losing to Indiana. So then the next 7 games, did I think it would go like that? No. Especially who we played, where we played them, the time in between games. Everything that could work against you. I heard Dusty talk about their ending was tight quarters too, and some of us had those kind of end of the year situations. Everybody had them throughout the season, but some of us had them towards the end of the year, and it's not easy to play those types of games. A couple of the big ones on the road. And still win. And so from a low point for one of my proudest points, because I thought those players just bared down. I thought my staff in quick turnarounds did an unbelievable job to put ourselves in a position. But the players win the games. The players play the games. And the players did a hell of a job at doing that.
You've kind of seen this tournament and kind of what Graham said in some ways, but what have you seen in terms of the teams that have went down to Indy, won it all, and then made long runs in the NCAAs versus a couple of those teams that didn't quite get to that Final Four? Like, what is there a common denominator that allows it, and how is this team in particular with its depth set up for 3 games, 3 days, and then quick turn?
Well, we're set up as well as anybody, but there's some other teams that have some depth now. But we are set up as good as anybody. That's the way we played all year. That's, you really look at some things that are amazing. I was talking to our trainer, and we talked about some guys sacrificing a few minutes here and there, a few shots here and there. But, it works the other way, too. We had one injury in Maui when Jace got hit in the head and had a little slight concussion. And we had one illness when I think it was both Book and Jeremy were sick with that flu bug. But no injuries, sprained ankles, knees. I think because our guys were fresher. So there was an advantage there. But I've also seen in this tournament, and coaches are smart, if we lose the first game, somewhere we're going to say, well, now we get a little rest, and we needed the rest. We're gonna tweak it and twist it like we do. I probably won't. I'll probably just be mad. But most people will try to do that. And if you win it all, I've seen us win it all, and playing that last night and then get shipped out west and have to play Thursday, and maybe it does affect you. So whatever way it works, I have a reason to cheer and a reason to blame. And but the gist of it all is, I think if you're a really good team that has got good leadership, your coaches do a good job, I think you should be able to play 3 games and then get ready to play in the NCAA tournament. And, there are some times when legitimately, maybe you're so beat up, maybe you got some injuries, maybe a guy needs a rest, there's a benefit. But I couldn't coach that way. I don't look at it that way. I've never looked at it that way. And I don't plan on looking at it that way this weekend. But I do know this. There are going to be some good teams going home Thursday night. There's going to be some good teams going home Friday night. There's going to be some probably really good teams going home Saturday night. So we got to learn how to handle it both ways, whichever one of us is in that situation.
Tom, NCAA tournament question. There's been a lot of talk of possibly expanding the field or not. Just your opinion on that. Do you think it should happen? Why or not? Why not? And do you see a day down the road where there's a big conference tournament and a smaller conference tournament, or what's your take on
I've
that?
done such a good job of staying away from the committees, and only you, Larry, could ask me where, that'd be something that really we should talk about after the year, because we're not changing it now, and I don't know what's right. I really don't. I've only a couple times missed the NCAA tournament. If I missed it a lot, I'd probably want 72. Same issue, I don't think it should get watered down. I think ours is watered down a little bit. That's part of the excitement of it, and being a big fan of the smaller programs, being a Division II guy myself, I love the Cinderella story, except when Cinderella's slipper fit me. And I didn't like the Cinderella story as much, and I think everybody else, TV and everybody, loves the upsets the first day, but they don't love the upsets moving forward. Where football, you're getting the best 12 teams for the most part. In basketball, it's not even close to that. So I don't know what expanding it would do. But, when they went from 64 to 68 in the play-in games, everybody thought that was cool. The play-in thing is kind of weird the way they do it. I don't know. I know this, that I care about the game of basketball as much as any coach. I think I work for a guy that thought more of the game than he did his own team, if I was to be honest with you. But I have learned, too, from the frustrations of not having a voice, because coaches don't have much of a voice, that I'm not going to worry about what they do, whatever the rules are. I'm just going to play by them. And that's kind of suited me better this year, instead of worrying about all the other problems, because there are some. But I don't know. I don't know if they'll go to 72, 96. I don't know what fits. I don't know. I know this. They can go to 120, and there's going to come a year someone says, don't you think you should spend 124 because these three teams didn't make it in? So nobody's ever going to be happy. I think it's what fits best, what keeps it exciting. We do have to do something with basketball because it doesn't even seem to start now until February, you know, with football being like it is now. So I also worry about that. So I hope the powers that be, whoever that is, who's ever making those decisions, because it isn't coaches very often, I hope they really put some time in and think about what's best for the game, what's best for the student athletes. But it reminds me of Judd Heathcote coming at the end of every summer. We had basketball camp, you know, in the summer. And it's that thing about everybody gets a trophy. And we'd pick an all-star team. And we had 3 divisions, the Big Ten, the NBA, and the MAC. And there'd be 10 all-star players from each, so it'd be 10, 2 teams of 10, 20, 40, 60 of the 250 people. So 190 of them would go home unhappy. So I got the job, and I said, well, I'm going to just play a tournament at the end, and everybody plays. And so everybody will go home happy, and next year they'll come back. And Jed comes by camp one day. He came back for the summer, and, you changed up the camp, huh? You succumb to everybody gets a trophy. And, you know, I don't like that about society, because I don't think that makes you work like you need to work if everybody gets the same thing. So I'm more, you got to earn it. Now, you're talking to a guy who's been so very fortunate in the last 26, 7 years, that 28 years, if you counted COVID, that we were in the tournament. And so I might look at it differently if I was one of those teams or in one of those conferences that doesn't get as many. And so I want to make sure that I say it, that I do feel for those people. But if everybody just gets in, you know, the more teams that get in, I think it gets watered down. So I think they got a lot of work to do to figure out what's best.
Tom, you mentioned several weeks ago after the Indiana game, you sort of dared people to play a zone against you again. And I know it's partly out of jest, but like Michigan went to one late in the first half, and you guys, at the risk of sounding like Jim Comparoni, seemed to do something different, short corner, you know, all sorts. Anyway, I'm wondering where that came from, because there did seem to be a couple different actions, and Michigan got out of the zone quickly because you were successful.
Well, John Barbich is kind of our offensive guy, and I thought, you know, after that game, we all got together and said, you know, and I said, I did a bad job. One of the things is not what we ran as much as we hadn't worked on it much. They had played like 1%, 2% zone the whole year. And it was my fault. So we did put in a few new things. He put in a few new wrinkles. But the best thing we did is we've worked on it every day since. And so when I dared him, I mean, hey, we hadn't been the best shooting team either. Sometimes you zone a team that doesn't shoot well. We are a good offensive rebounding team. Sometimes when you zone a team, you give up offensive rebounds, so it can work both ways. And I just think I dared him because I was so mad at myself that it wasn't about anybody else. It was about Tom Izzo.
Tom, I want to ask you about another Coach of the Year, Big Ten Coach of the Year, and Adam Nightingale. I've never seen a basketball locker room chant a hockey coach's name like that, or a team get invited out on the floor. So I'm curious, what makes you two so close, and I guess what's your relationship with Adam?
You know, what makes us close is Adam. I mean, I knew Adam a little bit. I didn't know him that well, and when Alan told me that's who we're hiring, I want to say it was the second day he came over and said, can we talk about recruiting? Then he brought his staff to practice, and then I realized he's a beer and a burger guy, you know, and I said, he'd be a good Youper. Then I found out he did play high school ball in Marquette, hockey. So just kind of fell in love with him, appreciated his humility, his egoless way of about him, his standards. You know, they can talk about it a lot more in hockey, you know, that, you know, he doesn't want entitled people. I do that. Half the people get mad because they want to be entitled, you know. Those hockey guys are different, you know, and my guys then started kind of last year. They went to a couple hockey games. This year, I mean, we come back. I think it was after Michigan. That was a Friday night game, and Saturday night we were playing a hockey game here against Penn State, and they all wanted to go to the hockey game, you know, and I just found it amazing. And I don't know if that's that they like hockey or if they like the competition. Some of them like that there could be a fight in hockey where you're not allowed to do that in basketball. Maybe some of them were just checking out the girls. I don't know what it was, but they actually had an interest in that. And then I started realizing you want to be around people that have the same dreams and goals as you do. And I think they knew they were playing for a championship, and we were. And so I suggested that, you know, they won it. And when they won it, their last game was at Notre Dame, and they didn't really get to share it with their fans. And so I talked to Loranda, our marketing girl, who was unbelievable, and they did a nice job of, and Adam was all in favor of it. And I just thought, you know, one of the goals is we all know that we've been through a lot here, and yet we're moving forward. We're starting to take off again, and I think getting everybody on the same page in athletics is just one way to do that. And the way the people, the basketball community, I guess, the way our players, when they came out of the stands, embraced those guys, I thought it was cool, you know. So it was perfect Division II, you know, where nobody has any money, so everybody loves everybody. Nobody's mad at anybody. It was a great Division II day, and I appreciate it. I know they did, and that's all that mattered.
Coach, when you talk about quick turnarounds, one-day prep and whatnot, I think it was before Oakland when you guys were in the midst of a long break there, you had said there was an emphasis of no excuses with your team, and it seems like they've really taken that to heart this year. Has that been encouraging for you as you've seen that from your guys?
Really encouraging. Really encouraging. It's like if we have a long break, if we have a short break, and I do think that one of the experiences that I've gone through and helped my staff with is the 1 and 2 day preps, you know, and now they've taken it over and done a great job. But your staff can be fully prepared. It's getting that information to your team that's the secret, you know. And I think my staff has done an incredible job. Each guy's got a scout, and they've done that. They spend time with the film, and I think our players trust our staff, and I think our staff trusts our players, and that's what's led to it, you know. And so, yeah, that's been an enjoyable part to watch everybody grow in that respect.
It's on Jaden making the all-defensive team. I'm wondering what you think about the way he's reached it seems like he's reached a consistency on that end of the floor, especially what last half of the season, last third, whatever you want to say, as his offense, as we've talked all year, has gone a little streaky. But for him to be that rock for you guys on that end, what have you noticed from him in that regard to keep up that part?
Another incredible sacrifice, you know, instead of pouting, you know, because he did struggle some offensively. Thank God he seems to be really catching it now, but instead of complaining about it, he just found a different way to add value. And boy, did he add value. And I thought we had a couple guys, you know, we were the best defensive team in the league. I mean, some of our bigs, Coop did an unbelievable job, you know, Jeremy, but Trey Holloman was another guy that was right on the bubble, I guess, and deservingly so. So it's pretty cool when an offensive guy, you know, we talk a lot about Gary Harris around here because he was a guy that could play both ends of the court. And I think Jaden took that to heart, and I'm really happy for him because that's not easy to do, you know, to go from a offensive player, which he still is, but he's always been a decent defender. But I think he became the guy that we put on the best player in the other team, or sometimes the biggest wing guy, and I thought he handled it incredibly well and was a big reason for our success.
And Doug Wojcik, assistant coach of the year, what does he give to you? You mentioned he's a defensive coordinator type, and his role seems like it's changed over the last couple of years, and what he does on the bench during game day, and how valuable he is to you as a sounding board and everything.
Yeah, well, Doug was here with me before, and then he went out and became a head coach. And, like I talked to DJ and Monty, I talked to DJ the other day, when DJ and Monty left, I made Doug the associate head coach because I had a younger staff coming in or a newer staff coming in, and I thought we all needed somebody when I'm not around or when I'm at press conferences that can. So he really took on that role too, and he's been great. He's done a great job with the defensive part of it, but he's more than that to me because he's been a head coach, so I can run things off him that I think he understands better, like anybody would. I'll never forget DJ last year. He called me and he did the same thing I did with Judd. Now I see why you thought this way, or now I see why you wanted that, or now I see why, whatever the situation is. So it's always good to have somebody on your staff that has that, and he's had that. He had been to some big programs, and he's still a guy worthy of getting a head job, and so, maybe this will be the year for him, maybe not, but he's done a great job for me, and I feel like he's helped me a lot. I think he's helped the other guys a lot.
Tom, it feels like we always talk about the 2020 year as a what if because the tournament didn't happen that year. Just talked about it earlier today, and I'm curious if you were to compare those two teams, this year's team and that 2020 team, how do they compare and contrast, and is this team even better than what that team might have been?
It's different, it's different. That team maybe was more talented with actual, if you use the word talent. I don't think that team was as deep talented as this year's team is. But Cassius was a special player, and not that I don't have special players. You always got to watch what you say, but he really was a special player in that year, with the tragedy that he went through. At the end, he was really coming on to his own. I mean, we were a really good team. I mean, I say I've had a couple of teams that I thought were Final Four teams. I thought a couple of teams that were national championship teams. One of them we didn't get out of the first game. One of them we didn't get out of the first weekend with Miles and Jaron. That was one that wasn't as talented as the Miles and Jaron one, but they were unique in their own way too. They were a really close-knit group. They had been through a lot, helping Cassius through what he went through. But I don't really know. I've never really compared the two because we didn't even get to the Big Ten tournament. We were sitting here practicing in that gym, and practice ended. We're going to go get a shower and go on a bus, and we got the call that they canceled. I think it was the Michigan-Rutgers game, and right before they were going to start. And so when you don't play in those tournament games, it's hard to compare them the same way. But the teams were similar as far as getting along and maybe the adversity that we had gone through there. We haven't gone through as much adversity here, except the adversity of not being picked as high. That was something that wasn't common around here, not to be picked in the top 2 or 3. And boy, they've done a heck of a job to prove they belong.